Okay, I figured out my key to success. Now I'm locked in. I learned how to open doors like a locksmith.
All right, welcome back. Another episode of the Locked In podcast. My name is Atwood. Sitting to my left, Mr. DK, former pro fighter, jiu-jitsu extraordinaire. He's the expert here. And, you know, had to have him on the pod. So when people say we don't know what we're talking about,
that kind of
falls on you.
yeah. I remember when I was teaching Air Force combatives back in, when I first, started there, I was probably 09, and it was a lot of the instructors there, they didn't really train outside of being a combatives instructor. Mm-hmm. And, I had to be like, there'd be like 200 people, in this learning combatives, and
right,
we have to go and they'd be like, hey, what if he does this? And I'd have to answer it.
Well, I'm sure you get a lot of that here at the Academy too.
Yeah, oh yeah, what ifs.
Right.
Those are the big ones.
Speaking of Academy, by the way, we are on the mats here. The Muay Thai space of the Academy, the Next Element Academy here in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Derek owns the joint, and has, been so kind to let us to film here, which I think is a pretty cool thing, man. We're on the mats. We got the bags right behind us. Yeah. Like,
if we need to show a move, we can show a move.
Right. This is literally where we train.
Yeah.
And I don't see really any other podcasts doing this. It's kind of like our shtick, our gimmick. So last pod.
Yeah.
By the way, St. Patrick's Day, if you can't tell, we're both wearing green.
Man, and I did this kind of on accident.
Oh, really?
I think this is the second time I've ever wore this shirt.
I did mine on accident too. Can you tell?
I can tell. Nice Heroes hat.
Yeah, Hero Tattoo. That's where I get all my work done. You
Same.
as well? Yeah. So Heath over there. Shout out to Heath. Who does
Jeff Cribb?
Jeff
has done most of my stuff, but Randy Hall as well has done some stuff.
Randy's amazing. He's never done any work on me, but I've seen him getting down in there. It's everybody over there is so talented, man. Shout out to Hero.
They are because I think Jeff wants them to kind of dig in the history some, and if they're going to be an apprentice under him, they have to draw as well on the side.
Right. No. Yeah. All of them just amazing. I've only had two people tattoo me over there, and it's Heath and his girlfriend. I don't want to get it wrong. I believe her name's Emily. She's done great work as well. Cool. So. Yep. Last podcast, we kind of ended talking about your career a little bit. The somewhat of the ups and downs, your favorite moment, stuff like that. I just kind of want to pick up where we left off there, and then we'll jump into some other things. So in terms of your career, 28 total fights, 3 different weight classes from 155 to 185. Yeah. Which for those who don't know, that's lightweight and welterweight, or middleweight,
lightweight, welterweight, and middleweight. Yeah.
So as far as your career goes, in hindsight, obviously, like, toughest opponent. Now, I know you fought some tough people, ex-Bellator fighters, UFC, even guys that were, on The Ultimate Fighter as well, things like that. So when you're asked your toughest opponent, what name comes to mind and what weight?
I don't know really exactly. Like, I've had a couple tough opponents, at some weight classes, but, just getting my ass handed to me has to be, Sabah Hamasi, which the fight, I found out I was fighting him on a week's notice.
Right. And that, man, what a guy to be told you're fighting him on a week's notice. Like, that guy's a monster.
At 175.
Right.
So it was like, I normally cut from, if I fought at 170, when I was fighting at 70, I might cut the most 8 pounds, so 78 to 170.
Right.
If I was, because usually if I'm in shape and I'm training and stuff like that, I'm like 76, 78. But so anyways, show up the weigh-ins, and then, he looked one size, and then we show up to the fight and he looked a completely different other size, and he felt it too. It's, usually I go a single leg on somebody, I can possibly, usually try to finish it, man. But it was like I hit a brick wall as soon as I went on a single leg on that. But man, as far as like skill set and just beating me basically on skill set alone, and that's what I don't look at. Yeah, I look at guys that I beat as tough, but guys that beat me, those are like the toughest. Those are the ones that you think about the most. Right. Is the guys that beat you. In my personal opinion, those things I dwell upon, and they haunt fighters.
Oh, I bet.
Is the losses.
I bet.
And
yeah. It's, I've never fought or anything. Well, I've done like point fighting, which is not the same. But just little things in life, like if somebody beats me, it's almost like an internal grudge.
It's an internal check mark, the little hash mark they got on you.
And I can only imagine.
So it's like,
an actual fight.
Another human being beating you up, in front of other people, in front of your loved ones, in front of your family members, in front of your girlfriend or wife or whoever. You know what I'm saying? So it's like tough.
Was that one the one in front of Dana? Or
no, I lost. So I fought this dude Ryan. I don't remember his last name.
I just remember you were like up north in like Massachusetts or something. Maine. That's
Bangor, Maine. Yeah,
Bangor.
Fought in finding a fighter.
It was looking for a fight.
Looking for a fight.
Yep, I remember. I was tuned in that night.
Man, my memory is terrible on that. Normally I remember fighters like to the T, this guy was Ryan.
Right. So back to the Sabah.
Sabah.
Or Sabah.
Yeah, Sabah.
Dang, I butchered. So that guy, I think he might be in Bellator.
He's in Bellator
now.
knocking dudes out.
Right. I forget what season the Ultimate Fighter he was on.
He was on the ATT versus Black Zillions when.
That's right, and he's American Top Team.
American Top Team.
That was an interesting.
So, when I fought him, it was, I got messaged by this guy, and who's the matchmaker, obviously. But I was supposed to fight his son, the matchmaker's son, and
last minute change, huh?
Week notice. The son.
My phone is blowing up, dude. I'm never this popular. Like,
so, anyways, man, like a week before the fight, his son's injured. I have to. He's like, "Hey, I have Sabah Masi at 175." I'm like, cool. That's fine, and did it anyways. And so, took the fight, and I was on a 4-fight win streak too at the time. So I was like riding a high, man, and I was like,
"Give me anybody."
Well, it was pretty much, a lot of people being brought down there to fight the whole team of American Top Team. So you had one corner was all red corner, and it was all American Top Team. And you had the blue corner.
People from all over.
All over.
Wow.
That they picked.
Handpicked them, huh?
Yeah, man, for them to come in. And it was like, man, it was just ATT just versus the world, and it was, they had picked all these people, and, I ended up getting 13 stitches in the back, but from an elbow that I got from Sabah. So over I think it's my left eye right here. I got 13 stitches in the back by the ringside doctor. I had to wait till after all the fights were done. I think we were the co-main or something like that. Yeah, and so yeah, that was just all around tough fight in general.
Yeah.
Just mentally driving down there to, and then when I get there, you got at the time, the 170-pound champ at the time, Robbie Lawler.
Was he there?
He was there.
Oh, dope.
And then Dustin Poirier was there as well.
Dope.
And so I think at the time I had Dustin Poirier's number, and so I shot him a text, and I was like, I said, I'm fighting one of your teammates, and he had said he knew about it, and I was like, will you be there? And he was like, yeah, and stuff. So, which, Dustin was at ATT. I think he still is at ATT. Yeah. He's a little bit less. He's a little bit got his own thing going on, but, me and Dustin go way back to when I was in New Jersey. He came up to visit at Kurt's and trained for like
sick,
a whole
man.
week.
I didn't know you knew DP like that.
Well, I mean, not like that, obviously, but it's like, I lost it his number somehow didn't update into my phone. So, but you know, he's big time.
Well,
now,
to be to be fair, he probably has a different number now anyway.
for sure, man. I mean, dude, I knew him back in. I mean, I was fighting for Bellator. I was getting ready to fight Felipe Nova, and Dustin had trained with Felipe, and you know, he was coming up to Jersey to visit for a week, and you know, I was on night shift at the time, dude. I was like working from 7 at night to 7 in the morning, and I had a Bellator fight coming up, and so the only time I could train was, you know, I'd come to Kurt's right after there. I'd leave work at 7, I'd come to Kurt's, and I would sleep on the mats until it was 10 o'clock time to train for jiu-jitsu.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah, see, this is the stuff, man, people don't even realize, man.
Right.
Like, I was active duty. I remember getting a call to sign for Bellator contract out in the field on a bus. Like, I mean, the middle of nowhere, dude. And they were like, oh, I got you a 3-fight deal with Bellator. You're fighting Marcin Held, your first fight. I'm like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Well, I had to take a TRX to work, man, so I could do, because I was working 12-hour shifts, so I'd have to do these conditioning workouts on my, like, lunch break.
Right.
So I mean, and I have dudes that can, like, they used to be like, man, why are you doing this stuff? I'm like, man, I'm trying to make it, bro.
Right,
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like,
well, that's the stuff that people like me, like on the outside, just don't see.
Yeah.
We only the average fan only sees the product, the payoff.
Yeah.
Don't see the things that go in behind the scenes. Just getting your foot in the door.
door, man.
And that's just the beginning, really.
It's wild. And so, you know, to go back on training with Dustin again, so it's like, you know, he had brought a friend of his, Thomas Webb, who ended up, he's a savage too, man. Him and Dustin go way back. They're really good friends. And I end up seeing Thomas at local fights now in the Southeast. And, you know, I'm able to talk to the guy because, you know, and he's from Louisiana. And so anyways, they're up in Jersey for a week. And so I would train jiu-jitsu at 10 a.m. and I would train MMA with Dustin and Thomas after that for an hour or so, get some sparring in or something. And sometimes Jeff Lentz would come down and train during that time. I think he came and trained with us for a little bit, who was also on The Ultimate Fighter season 12. And during that time frame, he smoked cigarettes, drank liquor.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
That
Jeff's
reminds me of the guy
wild,
that George St. Pierre brought in that one time on the
the
from
kickboxing
like Thailand.
coach.
Yeah,
He's
he's just
kickboxing coach.
beating
I think he was
everybody's
a
ass and
Dutch-
he's drunk.
He's like a Dutch kickboxing coach or something like that. Yeah. But anyways, man. So yeah, Sabah was a savage, man. He was just like he knew it. You know, he knew the answer for everything I had.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, a week's notice. I mean, who knows?
Right.
But
Well, you have a whole camp. Who knows how that fight goes? You know?
who knows? I was riding a 4-fight streak, and I was feeling a little bit of pressure that night too.
I bet.
Just because, you know, I'd been talking to a few different people. I'd been talking to some Bellator people. I've been talking to, you know, some people trying to help me get in the UFC. I think I was 11-6 at the time was my record, you know. So it was this could have been a really big win for me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so
Would you say he's maybe the biggest name?
no, I don't think so. Marcin Held at the time, I think he was ranked in the world when I fought
word.
him. And then Felipe Nova. A lot of people kind of forget about Felipe Nova, but I mean, he's just an all around. He's a really good athlete. You know, he's a nurse, I think, in Brooklyn and New York City.
That's sick.
Yeah, and black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So when I fought him, he was a black belt. I was a purple belt. And, you know, Dana White had said he's the next GSP or Anderson Silva at the time when he was the runner-up. So he was the runner-up for Ultimate Fighter season 12. So it was like, who knows? You know, I don't really remember. I guess Felipe's probably the biggest name, maybe.
Well, I remember the Sabah fight. I remember when, I don't know, you must have, I'm sure you posted it online or something, or maybe I was living with Jordan.
I think you and Jordan, y'all might have watched it on live.
Oh, well, we watched a lot. The fights that you didn't have here, like at the convention center or whatever, we were watching online. And I remember telling Jordan, I'm like, dude, I know who this Sabah dude is because I've always watched The Ultimate Fighter. And I was like, I know who this guy is. And dude's a beast.
Yeah, he came out there. He looked every bit of 200 pounds, man.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe I remember Jordan even mentioning that because I asked him, like, what weight is this? And he's like, I'm not sure, but that dude looks like he's at least 190. So, and then, obviously the fight played out how it did.
And that was tough for me, and we can talk about, like, the 185. I did 185 when I first started fighting, my very first fight. And then I realized, I'm like, I think I can make 170. And I would go and sit in the sauna every single day, which if you're cutting weight, don't do that. That's not the way you do it. So like I would, I wouldn't drink water because I'm like, it's adding weight. But it's like, the longer that I, started to, do my research and everything on cutting weight and dieting and everything like that, I was like, oh man, like you're supposed to drink more water because it helps you get rid of everything in it. It helps you stay hydrated. It keeps your muscles hydrated. It keeps your brain hydrated, which is very, very important, you know, especially in MMA. And that's another thing that we have to talk about too, is like when people get dehydrated from their fights, the next day you're fighting in 24 hours. So your brain has to rehydrate. And that, I think, I got knocked out a couple of times when I was cutting down to 55, man. I got, knocked out, I think, twice at 55. And I wholeheartedly believe it was because of my, not having a whole lot of
cut.
The cut, not all the fluid on my brain, man. Because plus I wouldn't feel really good the next day after a big cut, So like there was times where I cut to 55 and I did it amazing, I did it perfect, I felt great. Then there were several times I went to 55, and the day of the fight, and Felipe Nova is one of them. That fight there, I think we talked about this. We
talked about it a little last episode. Just felt like hungover from all the alcohol that you had put in the tub.
From the tub. And so it's like, but when we just got off on a tangent, but it's just,
well, that's kind of like what we're here to do, like if it goes off like that, I mean, we're talking about anything and everything, combat sports, and first couple of episodes, I really wanted to harp into your career a little bit and pick your brain. The Sabah fight, that was one of getting close to one of your last fights, right? I mean, you maybe had just like,
I was getting older. I think I was, I think I was turning 33 or something. I was getting ready to turn 33 that year.
Dang. It doesn't seem like it was that long. I mean, not calling you old.
I know, man. I mean,
it doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been what, like 7 years or something like that?
Something like that.
Sorry. The way you looked at me just now, I was like,
man, I'm just like, gosh, like it was a long time ago. Me and Megan had literally just kind of started dating a little bit. She was working at the Sheridan, and right after that, she got a deal on anything Sheraton related property. So, she had booked me she booked us a suite at the Aloft Hotel in South Beach after that, because we were flying Coconut Creek, pretty much in ATT's backyard.
Yeah.
And so she had booked me this suite, right, man. And, Cody Jones was with me down there. And then I had an old friend of mine and different things like that. And, so me and Meg have been together for.
Dude, it's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, you're basically
7,
kin to Jordan Penny.
Yeah, 7 years, I think, on March 18th,
Word.
So that's coming, that'll be next week.
So.
Or that's tomorrow.
Dude, good thing we had this podcast today, bro.
Yeah. Well, we're using our trip next weekend, kind of celebrate that.
Got you.
I've already
that's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow. I just realized it's the 17th, man. But
right,
the 18th of March.
So, that being kind of like towards the end of your career, I think it's important to talk about, and maybe you can give me and people watching insight on the end of a fighter's career, like what the questions you start to ask yourself, and maybe why you start to ask yourself these questions, as like, do I need to keep doing this? Can I keep doing this? Kind of like what were some of the thoughts that went through your head towards the end of the career, and why did you ultimately, well, obviously, I mean, you were getting older, right? To compete in a sport like that.
Yeah.
But,
so I just, I started talking to myself a little bit because I was like, man, I'm like losing fights and I shouldn't lose. Right? Like I lost a fight here in Myrtle Beach against a dude that I was like, man, get me this guy and I'll fight him tomorrow with no, I just knew I would beat him.
Right.
And I went out there and relied. I was like, man, if it goes to the ground, like I was like, I wasn't focused on just stabilizing position on top. I was like, either way, I'm going to tap this guy. I'm going to beat him. And it goes by, 3 rounds go by, and I lost the decision, because I just knew I was going to win. I just knew I would beat this guy, but I didn't put out like I should beat him. I was fighting not to lose pretty much.
Right.
Instead of fighting.
And that's always like a dangerous game to play.
Yeah.
In MMA. But just, I mean, it's a fight, and then you got judges. You have no idea what they think and what they saw.
And so, I started taking fights for scraps, man. Like, I mean, money that's so low, dude. Guys in my position, I was looking at myself, I'm like, why? And I was doing it just because, like, I made pretty good bit of money on sponsorships, so, and I had a per fight deal with, some companies. So like every fight, the more fights I get, the faster I can, get some money. And man, I was going to school using my GI Builder in that time as well. I was working at another gym and teaching full time. So I was like, man, maybe I just need to focus on other fighters. It's other fighters' dreams I need to be. I'm older. I'm running. I was teaching and I was fighting and I was running a fight team, managing, some different fighters, getting them fights and, all that stress involved in my life. I was like, man, like some of these dudes are going to be on the come up here pretty soon. And, I need to kind of back off on focusing on my career a little bit. So, and then I was like, man, I'm like 34. Like that's when I ultimately, when I turned 34, I was like, maybe 35, I'm going to like start to hang it up or something, and I didn't want to be that dude that was still trying to chase a hoop dream that was just fizzling out and you're looking ridiculous because of it. And some of those moments happened, at the end of my career.
Yeah. I mean, it's very rare that you see somebody in the sport of mixed martial arts that's been, doing it for as long as you did, especially. I mean, really, I don't even know if that honestly even matters because your age will catch up to you. And then it's the young bloods coming up who have been training everything since they were like 5, but it's rare that you see, I think Glover Teixeira is one of the guys that's still competing.
Randy Couture back in the day Randy Couture and Chuck Liddell is who I grew up, watching. And then, they end up, they're fighting in their 40s. And you're like, oh, man, maybe I can. But, like, then you see Chuck Liddell start getting flatlined.
Yeah, you listen to him. Love Chuck. Love his career. But you listen to him talk now. And the guy kind of sounds like he's drunk.
Yeah. And so I think that's kind of been him all the time. But it's like I didn't want to be that person that was just, still running after it and then, end up being upside down in my record, and then people don't respect you as much, and stuff. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like, and even, you know, I lost more fights than I wanted to lose, obviously. And that was like, I was like, man, like, this is ridiculous. And so when my last fight was in Italy, and
remember that.
I was already telling myself, I was like, I don't win this, it's done. You know, I was fighting a tough dude, first time fighting overseas.
Right. And didn't you fight like the next day after you flew there or something like that? Like the very next day?
It is. So we flew on a Thursday. We get into Italy, fly into Milan on a Friday morning, I think it is. So we had to stay up all day. Stayed up all day Friday.
Yeah.
We were living in an apartment, which was cool. You know, a bunch of us, we got to live in these different apartments in this little, like, in this town. It's called Bergamo. So it was like an hour outside of Milan.
Okay.
And it's this little town built in the 1500s.
That's the one you showed me pictures of with the big ass wall that goes around.
Yeah,
it.
they had a wall that went around. That's called the old city or something like that, man. And it had a big giant wall that went all the way around, and they sounded the bells at 9 o'clock at night for the closing of the gates to symbolize the closing of the gates,
right? Like
they did for centuries, you know. So, anyways, nobody there liked Americans.
Oh no.
Yeah, man.
Really?
Like, it was wild. Like,
damn.
You realize, you're like, oh, like, I'm like, the people that brought us there liked us.
Right.
You know, but there was a restaurant downstairs, you know, we try to eat at, because, number one, I'm trying to get some meat after I cut weight.
Right.
And it's pasta, and it's cheese boards, and charcuterie.
I can't say that word. Charcuterie, something like that. I was gonna try and say it. I was like, nah, I probably shouldn't.
Yeah, something like that. So we would have to go to restaurants. I mean, it's a small little Italian city.
Right.
I mean, they had some people that would speak American there, or American English.
That's why they hate us. No, just kidding.
And we would have to Google Translate or pull up something on a picture and just ask them, you know, to make a sandwich. Can we just get a sandwich right here? Or they had a picture of a sandwich on the menu, but like we don't know what a sandwich is in the Italian language. So,
man,
yeah. So, anyways, at my post weigh-in meal, so we get there on that Friday. They wouldn't seat us at a restaurant. This one guy wouldn't, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But you know, we get there and we get seated. We cut weight on a Saturday. Fights on a Sunday. So we get there on Friday. I don't get to go to sleep until like 9 o'clock at night because we're trying to wait on the what's it called, the jet lag. Trying to fix our bodies.
Well, also you got to get adjusted to the time difference. I mean, 5 hours ahead, maybe more.
6 or 7, I think, possibly.
Yeah,
I can't really remember.
That's
that was 2018. That was 2018. So January of 2018. And so this town is like right outside of the Alps too. Maybe not the Alps, because anyways, some mountains in Italy where it's popular skiing destinations and stuff like that. Definitely not the Alps. But it was just like old school. Nobody really, you know, everybody walked in the city and stuff like that, and they had this old city up there, and you know, not many people spoke English, and so we go the day after we weighed in. I wanted some food, so we go to this Italian restaurant that was below our apartment, and we're like standing there forever. We're just like, you know, nobody's approaching us, nobody's asking us if we need help. We come up to the table, and the guy there just ignores us, and we're like, "What?" And he's an older guy, and he just ignores us, and we're like, "Can we get a table or whatever?" And he just ignores us again, doesn't say anything to us, and leaves. He just gets up and leaves.
Wow.
And then we're like, there's other people there standing around, but most of them are Italian, you know? And so we're like, what's going on? And so then some lady comes up to us, you know, she can speak a little bit of English, and we talk to her, and she'll tell us she ended up helping us. But then I fought on a Sunday night at a nightclub.
Okay.
You know, and we are getting ready, you know, thinking of the fight, man. I'm like, you know, I'm pretty relaxed. I'm feeling good. I was really into ice baths and Wim Hof. I was like doing the breath work like a lot during that time frame, and ice bath and cold showers and stuff.
Can't do that.
And so I was stressing out, man, about it, you know, because like I didn't want to lose a fight, especially over there. And so
you were fighting a hometown guy.
So
I remember watching the video. They all cheered for him.
For sure. He was he was in the hometown side for sure. But anyways, man, we get there and we're in our apartment. I just got out of the shower. I'm getting ready. I hear a knock on my door. Go open it. It's my coach at the time. And his name's Jeff Gmo. He coaches numerous UFC fighters around, but he's been a mentor of mine and somebody I've looked up to for a long time. And, you know, he's the one that got me in this fight. And he was there with some other fighters from America. Anyways, he's like, it's time to go. He's like, they're here early. The van's coming at this time. I'm like, whoa, like it's supposed to be like another hour.
Right.
He's like, yeah, they're coming early. I'm like, what is going on? Like, what? I'm like, I got it. And so we had to rush and kind of get ready and everything like that. Get ready. Van picks us up. I got my headphones on, and I'm just like, you know, I'm in the zone. Van takes us to where we need to go. Guess what? Don't even know where we need to go. We end up I'm like, what's going on? So I'm starting to like, you know, like, and we get there outside the venue, and we're just sitting there waiting, and then we go in, we wait more, and we lay down and sleep, and then they put us in the back, and then they put all the Americans on one side. There was 5 of us on one side, and then they put the other some Italians on our side, and then most of the other Italians on the other side. But all the guys we were going to fight, their coaches, there was like a big tent we were in behind this club. Big giant like party tent, think of. And there was a little divider in the middle, but nothing crazy. You could see 10 feet on each side of it. There's gaps on each side, so it wasn't like a clear divide.
Right.
And their coach would literally, I remember them watching me while I'm shadowboxing. And I'm just like, what, like, you guys are just going to sit here and watch me warm up? And I was just like kind of blown away. So I started talking a little bit, you know, doing some American stuff. And, but anyways, man, yeah, when I got walked out, man, people just, it wasn't nice, you know?
Yeah. I can imagine, you know, especially since the guy was a hometown guy,
dude. I walked out with a big American flag that was flown over Iraq. And I played Native American. It's called. It's not actually a Native American group. They're from Canada. Actually, they're called Tribe Called Red. And I played one of their songs. It's called Electric Powwow.
Electric Powwow.
It's pretty wild, but it's got some Indian chants on it and stuff. Some screaming on there.
Right on.
And so it just got me in the zone during that time frame.
Right.
And that's what I would listen to during like ice baths too, to like just get me in the zone, you know, a little bit more savage.
That's dope. So that was, you said, the last fight of your career.
That was the last fight, and the adrenaline that I had to deal with during that fight, man, just really ruined me.
So,
you know?
If I remember correctly, that fight started out for you. I mean, looked like you were winning the action up until one point where I don't know if he got you against the cage or you had him against the cage. But I remember it went to the cage at some point, and it looked like that's where the adrenaline dumped.
I had big adrenaline dump, man. Like, I mean, I was dealing with the adrenaline in the back because, you know, they were, number one, they were all just watching us. They only had one hand wrapper. They made us use their hand wrapper per side. So blue side and red side. And so
Right.
we had to go up and wait in this little room and watch everybody get their hands wrapped, and they would wrap them in order of the fight. So by the time I got my hand wrapped, I was feeling rushed. I was feeling anxious. I was like,
Right.
man, I like to get my hands wrapped when I want my hands wrapped, and I want my coach to do it, and I want people to. Needless to say, guy did a good job, but he was taking forever.
Right.
He was trying to do everything so perfect and nice.
Yeah, it just
and-
goes better when you have your coach do it and they have
and
somebody
I'm
from
like,
the commission.
and here I am. I can't see what's going. I don't know what fight they're on. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I want to get down there so I know what's going on. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So, anyways, ended up stressing me out, and the adrenaline and everything that I was dealing with was just too much.
Yeah.
You know, I just couldn't deal with the adrenaline anymore, and so I just decided that was the time. You know,
Time
I was
just to-
just like, man, I'm just like tired of dealing with this. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? That feeling and the pressure and everything. I was the head coach of this gym, and not this gym, but another gym, and
Right.
I just felt a lot of pressure, man, and I just felt like it was time for me to, focus on coaching solely.
Yeah, and then you kind of alluded to that earlier. It's you had a lot of tough guys, and some of which have followed you here to your own academy now. And so I guess at some point it becomes more about, all right, well, they're young, their careers are just starting. Let me see what I can do for them to propel them, and kind of like step back and.
Yeah, for sure, man. And it took me some learning. I lost some friends, or I lost some students because of it, because I was focused too much on my career. And I know that now, and I learned from that. I'm an older, wiser man now. I'm 39
Right.
years old. I've been involved in mixed martial arts since I was brand new 23. A couple days after I turned 23, I started.
Dang.
And
now, what is that feeling like now? Like tomorrow, is Austin? It's just is that
Austin,
grappling?
yeah, he's got a grappling event, and that's an all-in grappling, and that's at Joseph.
Joseph Lecky's
thing. Yeah.
Okay. Word. So, describe to me the feeling of coaching a fighter now. Like the last fights. Where you had multiple fighters, you had Josh had a fight, Austin had a fight.
And they both won.
At Derek Brunson's promotion. I was reffing there that night. Didn't ref their fights, but I was reffing. What kind of emotions go through your head now? Like when you're on the other side of said fence, and you're watching them and coaching them. Like, what is that like?
You want to make sure, they know everything that could possibly be coming up, so you're like, you can't react for them, right? So you feel the anxiety and the pressure that that things that they need to look out for and be aware of. So you try to remind them of things like that before they go in there. I try to remind them of all the things that they have, all the hours and effort they've put into this game, how much, all the tools that they have under their belt that they know how to do. I try to remind that right before they walk into the cage. I wish I had somebody to do that, like remind me of the tools that I had before I walked in, but I knew I wanted that as a fighter, so I do that to my fighters. Right. So there's a lot of lessons that I learned, that I wanted my coaches, I wish somebody would do to me that I do for my fighters. I check on them constantly. Not constantly like, hey, are you okay? Hey, how you feeling? Yeah. Hey, you feeling okay? How you feeling all right? No, it's like, I understand, like, that day is stressful. You need anything. You good? And if they're good, I just let them chill. I let them sleep, do what they need to do. But if they need something, they shouldn't be lifting a finger to or having the stress involved in that, So I try to use those lessons learned when I was, I ask them when they want their hands wrapped. Not just springing on them like, hey, it's time to wrap your hands. We got to go. Right. I hated stuff being sprung on me. I still hate it. I hate it to this day, just stuff being sprung on me. I'm just, I hate it.
I get it. So how many fighters, I guess, are you actively coaching in in MMA careers?
So, we have Jeremiah Scott.
Yep.
Fights MMA as a professional here. And then Austin Coleman. He's the other professional. And then we just have 2 pros. And then as far as MMA fighters, we only have two amateurs as well. Josh Cook, who's had his first fight like a week after he turned 18.
Oh, sick! I didn't know he's that young.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now he's like 21.
How many fights, Emmys, has he had?
So he's only, I think, he's 3-1 now.
Okay.
3-1. So like it took him a whole year. He didn't fight for a whole year, but it's good, man. Like he used that experience. He didn't stop training during that whole time. So it looks like he took a break on his record, but he didn't. He just kept getting better.
Right.
And then he lost a fight. Took some time off and got better again, and then won 2 fights pretty much back to back.
I mean, the last fight he had for Derek Bryan,
looked amazing.
That was
really
a great
good.
fight.
Striking was,
and I loved at the end his opponent was talking all that shit, and
Man,
and then to lose after talking all that shit after the fight was over. I mean, it's like at that point in time, it's like you guys like fought each other. You literally laid hands on one another.
It's like
show some
it's
respect.
clearly he beat the guy. He clearly beat him. I mean, he was throwing knees at all kinds of different odd angles and different right in the body and tearing the body up.
He's a slender guy too, man.
And he's slender, and they sneak in. They're pointy.
Yep.
They suck. So he's got good high kicks as well. So he's up and coming. And
who's the other amateur that you have?
Corey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Coach Corey, right? For jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, he helps with the kids' classes as well.
Okay.
So he helps with the kids.
I don't know if he
wrestling.
was. I had seen pictures of him fighting, but I didn't know if he was like still.
Yeah, he's
fighting.
lost both of his amateur fights. Unfortunately, his first one, I think he rushed it a little bit too much. He ended up giving up his back and got caught. And
it happens.
Then second fight, man. I mean, he fought a kid from a really good team. Here in South Carolina, and was just a killer fight. He put on a really good show. He looked great. He just unfortunately, like at the very last round, he got caught in a bad position and was actually defending and coming out, but the ref stopped it. And, he would have ended up losing a decision, but
I mean, you'd rather take that decision lost over.
All in all, like, he had a great experience in there,
Right.
man. He fought a great fight, so he's been training a whole lot more now and doing a whole lot more jiu-jitsu. And
yeah, he's in there, just about every day with us on the mats.
Every day, yeah.
And
he's also helping teach wrestling 4 days a week for the kids with Coach Austin as well.
Right.
Austin, so, it's good to have. I don't like a big group,
Yeah, I mean, well, the smaller the group, I feel like the more you can trust people.
And it's less egos, man.
Yeah.
That's a lot of things you have to deal with MMA fighters is, you have to have an ego to fight.
Yeah. Oh, agreed.
As big as people say, no, leave your ego at the door, leave, no egos. And
I mean, there's levels.
There's levels to the ego. Like,
Right.
like you got to have an ego with your skill set.
Right.
And with your
really,
attitude, no.
Right.
Right. But with your skill set, man, you got to know that, like, got to have a little bit of ego.
Mm-hmm.
And attitude, we can leave that at the door.
Right. And besides, the pro fighters here and the MMA fighters here, I mean, you got a number of kids, or I don't want to call them kids, but Muay Thai fighters
we got
that are competing.
Several people that are competing in kickboxing for IKF. And, I mean, just so many. And it's cool to see what comes out of that, whether or not they, choose to do MMA, because, I mean, you have to do a lot of jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And with MMA, you have to find this blend that meshes very, very well to where you get an equal amount of striking and you get the equal amount of grappling.
Right.
And yes, there's going to be weeks and days where you focus more on striking, where, you know, or there's going to be equal amount of weeks where you focus more on grappling, you know. So you got to find that balance, man. At the first 5 years, it's going to take you to find your balance, I think, you know, and then you find this kind of routine and things that kind of work well for you and different things like that. And like, then you look back and you're like, oh man, I forgot I used to do it like that. Right. That's where I'm at now. You know, I forget that the things that I used to do when I was training for a fight or for a grappling match or something like that.
Right on. Yeah. Kind of just wanted to start where we left off with last pod for this one. Kind of finishing the 2-part episode of getting to know DK a little bit about your career and things of that nature. Episode 2, it's been fun.
Locked in.
That's right.
DK and Atwood.
Go ahead and tell them, man. What do they need to do?
Go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel and let us blow up.
Till next time.